Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war, with the cross of Jesus going on before. Christ the royal master leads against the foe, forward into battle, see his banners go. Onward, Christian soldiers, marching as to war, with the cross of Jesus going on before. Oh, for a faith that will not shrink, though pressed by every foe, that will not tremble on the brink of any earthly woe, that will not murmur or complain beneath a chastening rod, but in the hour of grief or pain will lean upon its God. A faith that shines more bright and clear when tempests rage without, that when in danger knows no fear, in darkness feels no doubt. Lord, give us such a faith as this, and then whatever may come, we'll taste and hear the hallowed bliss of an eternal home. A charge to keep I have, a God to glorify, a never-dying soul to save, and fitted for the sky, to serve the present age, my calling to fulfill. Oh, may it all my powers engage to do my Master's will. Arm me with jealous care, as in thy sight to live, and o thy servant, Lord, prepare a strict account to give. Help me to watch and pray, and on thyself rely. Assured if I my trust betray, I shall forever die. Rise up, O men of God, have done with lesser things. Give heart and mind and soul and strength to serve the King of Kings. Rise up, O men of God, his kingdom tarries long. Bring in the day of brotherhood and end the night of wrong. Rise up, O men of God, the church for you doth wait. Her strength unequal to her task, rise up and make her great. Lift high the cross of Christ, tread where his feet have trod. As brothers of the Son of Man, rise up, O men of God.
Good evening. Let's edify. The saints with professionalism and shenanigans. Yeah, had to get them all in there. Hello, everybody. Man, this eye just does not want to stop watering. Oh, that was the wrong finger to use. Sam, good evening, good evening, good evening. Good morning. How are you, my brother? Missed you reading. Thou art merciful, Father, full of pity, love, and grace. Thou wilt not forever chasten, nor in anger hide thy face. High as heaven, vast and boundless hath thy loving kindness been. Far as east from west is distant, hast thou put away my sin. Like a father's tender pity is God's mercy toward his own. For he knows our frame, remembering we are dust, our days soon gone. Like a flower blooming, fading, like the grass that we pass away. But God's righteousness and mercy on his children rest always. In the heavens well established is his universal throne. For his kingdom ruleth ever, and his sway all kings shall own. Bless Jehovah, ye his angels, bless him, host of his control. Bless Jehovah, all his creatures, bless Jehovah, all my soul. Maybe heaven will hold my tears. Probably, if they were actually tears. Angie says, this question on Facebook, friends page, can anyone tell me, in the patriarchal world of the Old Testament, why did the book of Kings share the king's mother's name? Well, why indeed? To be fair, I'm not 100% certain why. I can make some suppositions. First, of course, God is equal and is not a respecter of persons. The women need to be mentioned as well. It isn't just Jezebel and, Delilah or Athaliah. Those are three evil women, but you have a whole lot of others that are good. Um, but in the most logical reasoning is when you have a lot of names that are the same, Obed and Obed and Obed, a lot of times it is good to know who the mother is. But also when you have David, who had, 13 wives, or Solomon, who had 300 concubines, or 300 wives and 700 concubines, you kind of need to know who the mother was so that you can accurately trace lineage. And you're right. By the way, good evening, Angie. And that is one of the reasons that we can look at, Alessia, I need my Bible. If you look at the difference in accounts between Joseph's and Mary's lineage, Joseph and Matthew, Mary's in Luke, what you find is that they're from two different sons of David. And the only way that we know which one, we know this basically is because, well, they're from two different mothers. But they both had the same father, David. So whereas Joseph's descended from Solomon, I believe it was, Mary descended from Nathan. Grazie. Yep, there we go. Well, and who was the son, or who was Nathan's mother? We know Nathan was the son of David. Luke chapter 3, verse 31. But we have to go back to 2 Samuel in order to find. I'll get you that. You can show Luke 2 or Luke 3 verse 31, Alicia, while I go find the one in 2 Samuel. Maybe it's 1 Samuel. No, I think it's 2 Samuel. Second Samuel chapter 3, then, if we look, 2 Samuel 3, during this long war with the house of Saul, David waxed stronger and stronger. You see here in verse 1. Verse 2 says, unto David were sons born in Hebron, and his firstborn was Ammon of Ahinoam the Jezreelitess, his second Chileab of Abigail, the wife of Nabal the Carmelite, and the third Absalom, the son of Maacah, the daughter of Talmai, king of Geshur, the fourth Adonijah, son of Haggith, and the fifth Shephatiah, the son of Abital. The sixth Ithream by Eglah, David's wife. These were born to David in Hebron. So they needed to know which son belonged to who. And I'm trying to remember. Let me see where the other sons of David were listed. I think we actually have one of them in Chronicles. Second, or in First Chronicles chapter 3, which we'll get to next week in the Let's Read, it tells us, picking up in verse 4, First Chronicles 3, verses 1 through 5, 1 through 4, 1 through 5, 3, were basically a repetition of what we read in Second Samuel. But here in verse 4, these six were born unto him in Hebron, and there he reigned 7 years, 6 months, and in Jerusalem he reigned 33 years. And these were born, verse 5, unto him in Jerusalem. We have Shimeah and Shobab and Nathan and Solomon, 4, of Bathshua, the daughter of Amiel. So Nathan was born of Bathshua, the daughter of Amiel. Ibhar also, Elishama and Eliphalet and Noga, and Nepheg and Japhiah. Elishama and Eliada and Eliphalet, 9. That's 8. That's verse 8. All these were the sons of David, besides the sons of the concubines and Tamar, their sister. So that's interesting. That makes it sound like Nathan was the brother of Solomon, as in a full brother of Solomon, the daughter of Bathsheba. Also known as Bathshua, in verse 4. Why are you in Corinthians, my dear? We are in Chronicles. First Chronicles, chapter 3. CHR. Thank you. So think of that. David had 4 wives, and I don't know how many concubines. Evidently, we have Ahinoam, Abigail, Maacah, and Haggith, and actually 5 wives. Sorry, is it 5, 6? Let me. Nope, I miscounted. Okay, we have Ahinoam, Abigail, Maacah, Haggith, Abital, Eglah, Eglah, and then the Bathsheba or Bathsheba. And it doesn't mention the mother of Ibhar, Elishama, Eliphalet, Noga, Nepheg, Japhiah, Elishama, or Eliada and Eliphalet. Boy, that must have been confusing. He had 2 Eliphalets. Hello, Reba. So basically, there are, the way I can see it is lineage. When you have an issue, or when you have multiple wives, polygamy going on in the Old Testament, in order to keep lineage concise or accurate, you have to mention the wives, or the mothers, I should say. So, yeah. But that does make it really, really interesting. I think I said hello, Reba. Hello, Reba. But that does really make it interesting. I never realized that Nathan, because I always thought he was the son of a different wife, but no, it says that he's the son of Bathsheba, and is the full brother of, scroll down a verse, Alicia, full brother of Solomon. You have Shimeah, Shobab, Nathan, and Solomon. 4 by Bathsheba, the daughter of 5 up, please, Alicia. Thank you. The daughter of Amiel. Bathsheba is also known as Bathsheba. I mean, that's obvious. No. I'm in 5. I did not move on. Thank you. That is obvious by the fact that she's the mother of Solomon. So, I hope that answers. I mean, that's about the only thing that I can think of, other than, like I said before, the fact that God is not a respecter of persons. Therefore, He gives equal recognition to the women as well. I mean, look at what he does to the daughters of Zelophehad. He mentions them, each one of them by name. But you also have other places. For example, you look at Jacob's daughter Dinah. Clinton, please look at an answer. Please look at our answers to that. This is not the place. This is not what this ministry is for. While it breaks our heart, You are going to have to visit your local congregation and ask them for help. We do not have any money to give anyone, and I will not allow this platform to be used for scammers. And if you notice, every time someone comes on here asking for help to feed their kids, it is the exact same wording. Ergo, it is a scam. Sam says, separate question. Didn't it say that in the beginning God Sam's speaking to the idea of polygamy, polygamy. Didn't it say that in the beginning God joined man and one man, one woman together? And it baffles him that neither David nor any of the others realize that they didn't realize that that fact, nor that it would make, not that it would make a difference. What is profitable to listen to God. Well, first off, it is baffling. And I want to make the statement here that while God tolerated this digression, it never once means that he condoned it. His ultimate, as Jesus' own word says, from the beginning it was not so, which means that it was God's intention that it was one man, one woman for life. And in the church, what we see is that an elder, which the qualifications of an elder is one man, one woman. As in an elder was to be the husband of one wife only. In other words, they couldn't be married to more than one wife at a time. You could not be married to 2 wives, 5 wives. You had to only be married to one wife. Not that you necessarily couldn't be married to or have married a widow. As in your wife passed away and your first wife passed away and you married another woman. That's not what I'm saying. And CJ did a really good job in his lessons on pulpit times, going through the lessons or the qualifications and regarding that particular topic. I'll let him explain that in his pulpit times for anyone who wants to go back and look and watch those lessons. But what this did by the elder setting the example of being married only to one woman is that it filtered down. And what we understand then, Jesus as the prime example is the husband of one church, not multiple churches, one church. He says, and in Matthew 16, and verse 18, he says, and I will build my church, one church, not multiple churches. In Ephesians chapter 4, he tells us that there is one God, one Father. Do I have anybody in tech now that I saw Alessio mosey off? He says in Ephesians 4 and verse 4, there is one body. Well, that body is referring to the church because the church is the body of Christ. And so Um, there's only one church, the church that Christ built, that he founded. And the elders, as men of example, had one wife, just like Christ has one bride. And so that filtered down, and eventually polygamy among the church members was eliminated. So why is it that God allowed polygamy? A lot of it has to follow within the same grounds as Matthew 19 for divorce. Just as Matthew 19 tells us why, in Matthew 19:7, the Pharisees have asked Jesus, why is it lawful for a man to put away his wife for every or any cause? And Jesus gave them answer saying, going back to the creation principle, Matthew 19 verses 4-6, he reiterates the creation principle. Is anybody there? Hello, Matthew 19. We're getting ready for verse 7. And so they say to him, then why did Moses command to give a certificate of divorce and to put her away? And Jesus gives the classic reply in verse 8. Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, permitted you to divorce your wives. But from the beginning it was not so. God, because of the hardness of men's hearts, allowed polygamy. But then from the beginning it was not so. So even though God allowed that to happen, it does not mean that he condoned it. And I want to look towards what Paul says. So what is it then when we look at the Old Testament versus the New Testament? First off, we need to understand that we are under a new covenant. We're not under the old any longer. God does not allow what he does not condone. If he doesn't condone it, it's sin. How do I know that? Well, he has established certain principles. And if we go to 1 John, I just lost the chapter and verse. Hang on a minute. I got to go find it again. It was in my head, and now it's not. There it is. 1 John 5:17. Where's Alicia? 1 John 5:17. John says all unrighteousness is sin. All of it. So if there is a creation principle and or law, and God, Jesus hearkened back to that law as the basis for his reasoning, then what do? What do we know? We know that God's creation principle is still in effect. God's creation principle, God's creation law is still applicable because Christ hearkened to that. So when Jesus says that in the beginning it was one man, one woman for life, Matthew 19:8. Actually, not 8. Go back up. 6. 5. 5 would be good. 4, 5, and 6. There we go. We'll cover it all. And he said, have you not read that he who made them at the beginning made them male and female, and said, for this reason shall a man leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, and the two shall become one flesh? So then they are no longer two, but one flesh. Therefore, what God has joined together, let not man separate. So Jesus hearkened back to that law, that creation principle, that creation law. And therefore, under the New Testament, the creation law is in force. Anything then that is beyond that, that is outside of that law, that changes that creation law, becomes unrighteous. Because that creation law is righteous. It is right. And we can do what is right and therefore be righteous. And you don't believe me? Well, Jesus said through the Apostle John, as he wrote the book of 1 John, in verse 7 of 1 John 3, little children, let no one deceive you. He who practices righteousness is righteous even as he is righteous. So if Jesus is righteous and does what is right, and we follow Jesus and are practicing what is right, then we are righteous. And anyone who tries to tell you different is a liar. A deceiver, verse 7 says. So Jesus said that in this principle then, that it's one man, one woman for life. Jesus in the church is one man, one woman for life. He's not going to have another one. If he goes beyond that, what happens? If a man, let's understand this now. If a man goes outside of his marriage and has relations with another woman, a woman who is not his wife, what has he done? We understand this principle. We know this for fact. He defiled himself, but there's a word for it. What has he done? What is the act that he has done, Sam? If a man goes and has relationship, an inappropriate, a sexual relationship with a woman outside of his wife, what's that called? Fornication. All right. If it's fornication, fornication is what? It's not adultery, Reba. Adultery happens after the divorce, according to Matthew 19. We can look at that a little bit later. But it's fornication. Fornication is the act of sexual immorality, sexual relationships outside of marriage. Okay. Now let's pause that just a moment. Let's go ahead and touch on it, because that's a real quick, easy way to look at it. Matthew 19, real quick, before we go to the next one. I want to show the Bible says this. Matthew 19, and let's look at verse 9. I say unto you that whoever divorces his wife, we're in the New King James here, except for sexual immorality. If we look at the King James, it says except for fornication. All right? Sexual immorality, fornication, and shall marry another, commits adultery. The fornication has already occurred, and that caused the divorce. All right? If you divorce a person except for fornication. So if I were to say, I'm tired of Amy's cooking, let's just use this as an example of something that would have been gone on during that time. If I was to say that harlotry, which included adultery, and it says, Strong's, you're wonderful. Pornea, illicit sexual intercourse. Adultery is not there. Look at the word adultery, Shea. Go into the other word. Go into the other one.
That figures.
I know who it was as soon as you started actually keeping up with me. Go ahead and go into the Greek. Look at the word adultery in that verse. Notice it's not the same as fornication. Look at Strong's. Moikao, to commit adultery. You're wonderful. Look at G3432. That's the verb form, by the way. If you click on that, if you click on the G3432, it should change it. Probably won't. There we go. Apostate. Apostate. We understand the word adulterate or adultery, to adulterate, to pervert, to defile. Okay. And what adultery is a fornication. But not all fornication is adultery. Go back to fornication in Mounts. You'll have to go over. Yeah. But here's the thing: if I was to, like I said, if I was to say, okay, I'm tired of your cooking, Amy. We're going to get a divorce. It's not working out. And so we divorce, and I go and I marry another person. I have committed adultery because I've adulterated. I've perverted, I brought in and defiled my commitment before God, because God has not released me from my commitment to Amy. Notice in Mounts what he says of fornication, concubinage. That's an interesting one. In other words, concubines are adultery. Wow, that one I never knew.
Yikes!
But it does make it clear, doesn't it?
It does.
It does. So what Jesus is saying then is, if I was to do that, I would commit adultery, because God hasn't released me from my commitment to Amy, from that first one. Now, except, he says, there's a clause, except it be for fornication. Now, if I was to divorce because of fornication, then marry another, I would not be committing adultery. That is the logical argument, reasoning based upon this statute here in Matthew chapter 19, verse 9. Now, whoever then marries Amy, who has been divorced, commits adultery. Because there again, we haven't been released. So now, let me ask you this, or let's go back to our original thought and theme. Hopefully that makes a bit more sense. And if it didn't, Reba, sing out. So adultery is fornication, but not all fornication is adultery. All right. We were talking about how Jesus said that the principle is one man, one woman for life. And in the new law, to bring in or to be a polygamist or a bigamist, polygamy meaning multiple wives, bigamy meaning 2 wives. So polygamy is 2 or more, and bigamy is only 2. Go ahead.
I was going to say, wouldn't that fall underneath the concubinage idea?
Not necessarily, because under the idea of concubinage, the concubines didn't have full marital status. They weren't full wives. They were kind of like in a half state.
Only.
But it's still. Yeah, I know. Only in the eyes of the.
Only a human could have come up with the idea of half married. I mean.
Right. So let's look at this. That Jesus stated that principle, and then he stated, actually that was after he stated the idea of him building his church in Matthew 16. Now, we see in Ephesians chapter 4 or 5 rather, Ephesians 5. Sam says it still baffles him. In what way, brother?
Which, what, and why?
Fornication is the sexual act, Sam. Adultery is what happens when you commit the sexual act after you have, in the eyes of the law, divorced. God still hasn't released you from your commitment, but the law has. The man has, and so you pervert the commitment before God that you made before God. You adulterate it. You water it down. You defile it. Ephesians chapter 5. In his dissertation in verses 22 through the end of the chapter on marriage, he talks about how the husband is the head of the wife, verse 23, even as Christ is the head of the church. In other words, Christ is the husband to the church. Oh, well, I thought you were talking about fornication and all that stuff.
I was gonna say, they were under Moses' reign.
Yeah.
They didn't exactly miss the point. They were just allowed to.
If I might put it a different way, have you seen Pirates of the Caribbean, Sam? Okay. If you remember in those movies, I don't remember which one it was, but Barbosa says that the pirates' code was more of a suggestion rather than an actual law. And O'Shea is cackling with laughter over there. And to most people, they treated God's law that way. But you see, they abode not by the patriarchal law, my brother. They abode by Moses' law. And Moses' law did not stipulate one man, one woman. It did, however, allow for divorce. And culturally, by that time, polygamy was rampant. And so, because it was a cultural norm and Moses' law did not speak against that norm, they figured it was okay. So it was just, just a suggestion.
You just got wrapped up in there.
So that would be how, that would be the easiest way to explain that the reason that they missed it. Did they have Genesis? Absolutely. Was that written in Genesis? Absolutely. But that would be the reason why it wasn't, it was that big principle was missed. Now, Ephesians 5:23 tells us that the husband's the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, and he's the savior of the body. This kind of goes back to the principle I was saying, that there's one body, and there's one head, there's one Lord, there's one, one Christ. But Jesus is the husband of the church. And as the church is subject to its husband, so let the wives be to their own husbands in everything. Verse 24. So, he uses that analogy quite frequently throughout the rest of that chapter. Understand then, if Christ was to have more than one church, what would he be doing? If he was to go outside of his marriage relationship to the church, what would he be doing?
That would be spiritual fornication, idolatry, etc.
Right.
And
spiritual fornication.
He would be doing exactly what God accused Israel of doing through the minor and major prophets,
Precisely.
She's running around on me. She left me
for all these idols.
She's shown herself to all other nations. Yeah.
And so,
same scenario.
Right. And let's look at Romans chapter 1, beginning in verse 29. Romans 1:29. Notice here, Paul, writing by inspiration, says, being filled with all unrighteousness, fornication. wickedness, covetousness, maliciousness, full of envy, murder, debate, deceit, malignity, whispers. And we continue on 30 through the end of the chapter. Backbiters, haters of God, despiteful, proud, boasters, inventors of evil things, disobedient to parents, without understanding, covenant breakers, without natural affection, implacable, unmerciful, who, knowing the judgment of God, that they which commit such things are worthy of death, not only do the same, but have pleasure in them that do them. If Jesus were to be running around or having multiple churches, he'd be committing fornication. He'd be doing exactly what he condemned through the Apostle Paul here. And if those who, and that's also called being a hypocrite. Christ only built one church. And so we need to make sure that we find the church that he built. Because there is no other church that is going to be saved but his church. Jesus is not a fornicator. He remains committed to his bride, the church that he built. And as that church is subject to him, you know what that means? That she has put herself under his authority. She willingly does what he commands. She doesn't run around on him. She's not going to follow Joe or Barnabas or Pedro, or she isn't. She ain't running after Mary or after Menon or anybody else. She abides only by the rules and the authority of her husband, Christ. Jesus is the head of the church, not Peter, not Andrew, Paul, Joseph. I don't know how much more clear we can get it. Not Billy, not Pat, definitely not Levi. And so to try to say that all these other churches out there are Christ's church is to call Christ a fornicator, especially when Christ didn't set them up, but man set them up. Men who went against and perverted the doctrine of Christ, changed it. Christ is not a polygamist. You got to do something. So, you're stepping on my cord. Well, you know what time it is.
Okay.
Up full, yeah.
Hi.
Night, night.
Hi.
Sleep tight.
Hey.
Come on, say it right. Dreams. Sweet dreams. Love you. Love you too. Peace. Come on, get your C in there. Peaceful rest.
God
bless.
Night. Night. Good night, Reba. Good night, Sam.
Angie.
Good night, Angie.
All right, Sam says good night, sweetie. So, no, I mean, polygamy is wrong. Bigamy is wrong. God said one man, one woman for life. And Jesus is our ultimate example. Good night, sweetie. Reba says good night, sweet girls. God bless. All right. Let's see. Anything else? Jesus is our ultimate example. He is the Lord and Master. He said one man, one woman for life. He also is exemplifying that by one man, one Lord, one head, and his bride, the church. One church, one bride. And in his qualifications for elders, those who were to shepherd his people, one man, one woman. All right. Anything else? I hope that has, Angie, I hope that helped. I hope that answered your question ultimately. We began talking about lineage. Why is the mother's name mentioned in the Old Testament? More than likely because of polygamy. They needed to keep track of who's who. And when you had a man with multiple wives, usually the lineage went through the wife because, well, there were more than one wife, but there was only one dad. And of course, we talked about marriage and polygamy, bigamy, polygamy. That's all, folks.
And what CJ would do is he'd end the broadcast right there. That's all, folks.
Says the boy, didn't open a can of rabbits. No, we didn't. I didn't chase any rabbits. Did you chase rabbits?
Nope.
I guess we did have one, but it was kind of an offshoot. Same thing.
Well, that was just a different branch to cut down.
We could have gone into the vine.
Same tree, different branch.
You're welcome, Rita. And I mean, you know, when you look at it, it makes, I mean, when you look at the wording, again, the Bible uses the words for reasons. And we need to stop and consider why does the Bible say that? Why does God say that in that fashion? There's a reason for it. And if we stop and we look at it and we consider it and don't just simply read it with our emotions, our feelings, or run roughshod over it, trying to determine or trying to prove something, it ends up making a lot more sense. Let the Bible speak for itself, because it is the best dictionary of its own terms. All right, let's have one more song. Yes, God has all the proof.
He has all the answers too. No playing Scrabble with God.
That would be quite a game. Oh, how about a little song of comfort as we to carry us out? I'd do. We should do that again, but I'm not sure my voice can handle it tonight. Anyhow,
We've done a lot of singing in the past 2 days.
yes, Amos, you're a half hour beyond your time. On what? Ah.
That was just like
Right.
playing soccer.
All right, so we're going to do number 705, O'Shea. If you want to put up the name for it.
7:05 in what book?
Praise for the Lord, of course.
Praise for
It's
the
Sunday
Lord.
night.
I see. I
Maybe
never,
I sure could use it tonight. I could sure use it tonight.
I never managed to figure out which book goes when, because it's really not my problem.
Sundays are Praise for the Lord. Mondays are the Red Book, Hymns for Worship.
Which one are we doing again?
Praise for the Lord, 705.
705. Okay, I was thinking of 709.
Well, we could extend it a little bit if you have some songs that would comfort you, or I could extend a little bit more singing. Just don't get it too strenuous for me. Here we go. We gather together to ask the Lord's blessing. Each hastens and hastens his will to make known. The wicked oppressing now cease from distressing. We sing praises to his name, he forgets not his own. Beside us to guide us, our God with us joining, ordaining, maintaining his kingdom divine. So from the beginning, the fight we were winning. Lord, thine be all the glory, the victory is thine. We all do extol thee, thou King of the nations, and pray that thou still our defender wilt be. May thy congregation escape tribulation. Be thou forever praised, thou God of the free.
Well, we've given Reba 2 new things.
And it is a comforting one. God's the one that holds all the victory. Amen.
And all the answers.
And all the answers. He is our defender. And this is a song of prayer and praise at the same time. It comes. Wow, it's an old song, by the way.
1626.
Yeah, Valerius' collection, 1626 is the first time this appeared in print. It was translated by Theodore Baker in 1894 and arranged by Edward Kremser in 1877. Fine by me. Probably going to be cooler outside. But it's quite a beautiful one. I don't know what language it was in. More than likely, probably German.
It has a German vibe to it. And yeah, I suppose it could have been in 1626.
Well, you could actually look it up on Google it.
Oh, I suppose.
But Kremser does sound kind of like a.
I was going to
German
say that sounds very German. So does Valerius.
Valerius?
Valerius.
Nah, Valerius is actually kind of more of a Latin. Anyhow, it's interesting. Oh, nice, CJ. Good job. He's got a Bible study set up for Tuesday night. Pray for him. Pray for his. The title of that song is this one. Sam says, "Leaning on the everlasting arms." I can do that. It's going to do a couple of.
This is what Wikipedia has to say on the matter. We gathered together is a Christian hymn of Dutch origin written in 1597 by
Adrianus Valerius.
as Wilts
Wildheden Nutreden.
Yep. To celebrate the Dutch victory
Or
over
Nutreden.
Well, German before called German was Deutschland, so
Deutschland.
Deutschland.
Deutschland. And no, it wasn't for. No. No, O'Shea. No.
Oh. Hey, it seems to work.
No, O'Shea.
Sounds good on air.
394.
Close enough region. Whatever.
Dutch is part of the, I think, is in the area of the Germanic tribes, but no.
Because I think Dutch is a Germanic tribe.
But notice it's called Germanic tribe.
Yeah,
not
I know.
Dutch tribes.
They all had a similar language. Where are we headed?
394.
CJ, you been slacking?
Well, he's been visiting with his aunt, remember?
Yeah, I know.
Aunt and cousins.
But there he is. He's using his sorries again. And
I know, right?
so I'm just going to call him a slacker.
We know he's sorry. But so are we all.
So is not Reese's.
Right? Reese's isn't.
Not Reese's.
What a fellowship, what a joy divine, leaning on the everlasting arms. What a blessedness, what a peace is mine, leaning on the everlasting arms. Leaning, safe and secure from all alarms. Leaning, leaning on the everlasting arms. Oh, how sweet to walk in this pilgrim way, leaning on the everlasting arms. Oh, how bright the path grows from day to day, leaning on the everlasting arms, leaning, leaning, safe and secure from all alarms, leaning, leaning, leaning on the everlasting arms. What have I to dread? What have I to fear? Leaning on the everlasting arms, I have blessed peace with my Lord so near. Leaning on the everlasting arms, leaning, leaning, safe and secure from all alarms, leaning, leaning, leaning on the everlasting arms. CJ is going to be starting the same way he's starting on Thursday for the community study. With his study for this person. Good deal. You got to set the authority of the scriptures.
Bum, bum, bum.
7:12.
Season 12.
In our times of trouble, in our times of worry and stress, what better way than to remember and meditate upon the words of Psalm 121?
Yeah, I can tell. I'm ready to mute you.
We'll just keep giving him, throwing food at him.
Hey, I like throwing tomatoes at CJ. And potatoes.
Although I don't know, it might be a waste of good food.
Yeah. Anything to get him to shut up.
We'll make sure it's like potato soup and stuff.
He wanted feedback, I mean.
Here we go.
Which song?
7:12.
12 or okay. 7:12. So
I hope we haven't lost Reba. I think she's still here.
she's probably just listening.
I just noticed our attendance dropped from 5 to 4.
Done.
And now CJ is going to be right back.
Yeah, that's because CJ can. I'll be back.
Oh, good. I'm glad you're still here.
Reba's here.
As I said,
There you go.
let's sing, let's meditate upon the words of Psalm 121. Unto the hills. Unto the hills around do I lift up my longing eyes. Oh, whence for me shall my salvation come? From whence arise? From God the Lord, that come my certain aid. From God the Lord, who heaven and earth hath made. He will not suffer that thy foot be moved, safe shalt thou be. No careless slumber shall his eyelids close, who keepeth thee. Behold, he sleepeth not, he slumbereth ne'er, who keepeth Israel in his holy care. Jehovah is himself thy keeper true, thy changeless shade. Jehovah evermore on thy right hand himself hath made. And thee no sun by day shall ever smite, no moon shall harm thee in the silent night. From every evil shall he keep thy soul, from every sin. Jehovah shall preserve thy going out, thy coming in. Above thee watching, he whom we adore, shall keep thee henceforth, yea, forevermore. Oh, and one more.
14.
234 or 5.
Oh, I see. Oh, 34, 35.
Meditating upon that and realizing how God is always with us and always watching over us and caring for us. 235. I like stringing songs together to make up a nice, lovely spiritual point, don't you guys?
TJ and I were doing that the other night.
Were you?
Yeah. Just kind of playing off each other's.
Wait for him to get the title put up there. Thank you, Reba. And I mean, these are songs that you know. Remember that we're supposed to sing to one another in psalms, hymns, and spiritual songs, making melody in our hearts. Ephesians 5:19. But we're also supposed to teach one another, admonish, and encourage one another with these psalms. And
It's in our what?
Colossians 3:16 and 17. What?
It's in our what? Modus operandi.
Well, a kind of modus. That is our mode of operation. But
it's literally in our description for edification.
In our command. Mission statement, one might say. Part of it.
Just lean back in the chair.
Whoops. Why should I feel discouraged? Why should the shadows come? Why should my heart be lonely and long for heaven and home? When Jesus is my portion, my constant friend is he. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. For his eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me.
Let not your heart be troubled. His tender word I hear, and resting on his goodness, I lose my doubts and fears. Though by the path he leadeth, but one step I may see. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. For his eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. Whenever I am tempted, whenever clouds arise, when song gives place to sighing, when hope within me dies, I draw the closer to him. From care he sets me free. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. His eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. I sing because I'm happy. I sing because I'm free. For his eye is on the sparrow, and I know he watches me. I always feel like I should sing that chorus again. But hopefully, as you can take comfort from those songs that we just sang, you can lean on the everlasting arms of Jesus. You can gather with all of us to offer up songs of prayer. Songs, you can offer a prayer. You can ask God's blessings for victory within your life. Always look to the hills, to God, to the hill of Mount Zion, where God reigns supreme. Because the Mount Zion in the Bible, in the New Testament especially, represents his seat of authority, his seat of power. And Jerusalem, well, that's the church. But we look to him, to our hill, our Mount Zion, our Christ, our God, and know that he's not going to slumber. He's going to watch over us and keep us, even amidst all the trials and tribulations that come upon us. We don't need to be discouraged. We don't need to be fretting, because all our cares are in his hands. As Peter tells us, cast your cares upon him, for he careth for you. In 1 Peter chapter 3, I think. I'll get that for you. Give me one moment. I won't find it in 2 Peter chapter 3.
1 Peter 5:7.
You want to repeat that? I didn't hear it.
1 Peter 5:7.
Thank you. 5:7. So as you consider all that, casting your care upon him, We hope and pray that you have been brought closer to God through our study tonight, and have been edified to walk a closer, a more personal, a more richer life with God, a more richer walk with God this night. That way, whether we wake tomorrow to serve him here on this earth, or we wake tomorrow to serve him up there in heaven, you know where we'll be, because we'll see you then. God bless.